They laughed when she walked into the control tower. Asterisk, they told her to step aside. This isn't a job for a woman. Asterisk, but when the target hit dead center, silence filled the room. Asterisk, they checked the data. Asterisk, and there it was, her name, asterisk. The one they had just dismissed, asterisk, was the one they had to salute. Asterisk, Leena grew up in a quiet valley, where the sky always felt close enough to touch. Her house was small, her dreams big. Her father, once a radar technician for the military, had retired early after an injury, but his stories never retired. Every evening, he'd sit on their rooftop with old maps, faded photographs, and a rusted radio that still picked up fragments of distant military chatter. While other children were outside chasing kites, Leena sat beside him, soaking up every signal, every code, every whispered memory of the skies. She learned how to read flight paths before she even understood full sentences. Her fingers grew steady from fixing wires and soldering broken parts, her eyes sharp from staring at blinking lights and learning what each one meant. It wasn't a game to her. It was a world she belonged to, even if no one else saw it yet. Teachers said she was too quiet. Relatives said she should focus on girls' things, but her mind was already inside a radar tower, tracking imaginary targets and adjusting calculations in her notebook. Her confidence didn't come from praise. It came from the rhythm of learning something new, solving what no one else saw. At night, while her village slept, she'd listen to the static hum of her father's old equipment, closing her eyes and dreaming of air bases and launch pads. She wasn't chasing attention. She was building precision. Day by day, she trained her senses in silence. And though no one clapped for her skills, not yet, Leena was already preparing for a moment the world hadn't written for her, a moment that would demand steady hands, a sharper mind, and a kind of courage that doesn't ask permission. Asterisk, when Leena turned 19, she applied for the National Military Training Program, the same one her father once served under. Her village was stunned, not because she was too young, but because she was a girl daring to enter a world where women were barely seen, let alone respected. On her first day, she stood silently among rows of recruits, 84 of them, and only 3 women. The stares were cold, the whispers louder than commands. Some smiled mockingly. Others didn't even try to hide their doubt. The instructors didn't treat her badly. They simply treated her like she didn't matter. During simulations, she was pushed to the back. During equipment drills, they handed her the lighter tasks. They said things like, "Don't hurt yourself," or "Let the real team handle this." But Leena never argued. She just observed, quietly absorbing every detail. While others competed to be noticed, she focused on getting everything right, even when no one was watching. She memorized radar sequences in her notebook during lunch breaks. She practiced coordination drills alone at night, in the empty training field. Slowly, the system that tried to box her in became the system she learned to master. A few started noticing how she was always first to arrive and last to leave, how her numbers were never off, but most still brushed her off, calling it beginner's luck or silent obedience. What they didn't realize was that she was never trying to prove them wrong. She was preparing to be ready when it counted, when chaos would demand calm, when calculation would mean success or failure. In a place where doubt lived in every hallway, Leena didn't push back. She stepped forward, into the silence, and made it her strength. Asterisk, it was a grey, wind-swept morning when the announcement came. A live missile simulation, one of the year's most critical, was scheduled at the main testing base. Dozens of senior officers, engineers, and analysts gathered. The control tower buzzed with tension. Everything had to be perfect. One small error, and the missile could veer off course, costing millions and risking reputations. But just hours before the launch, the lead data operator fell ill. The team panicked. Backup staff were either inexperienced or unavailable. The commander looked around the room, uncertain. And that's when Leena standing quietly behind the technical crew, stepped forward. "I can operate the system," she said, calmly. The room went silent. Then came the chuckles. Someone muttered, "Now's not the time for experiments." Another added, "This isn't a classroom, trainee." Still, she stood there, not begging, not challenging, just offering a solution. The commander, under pressure, and with no other immediate option, reluctantly allowed her into the tower. "Sit in the corner," he ordered. "Don't touch anything unless told." Leena nodded and took her seat. As the systems powered up, screens lit with complex data, wind speed, target coordinates, timing sequences, that's when she noticed something, a slight misalignment in the target input. Just a few numbers, but enough to cause a miss. Her heart raced, but her hands stayed steady. She double-checked, then again. Certain now, she quietly leaned in and corrected the input, without making a sound. No one noticed. The countdown was about to begin, and all eyes were focused on the launch pad. Leena leaned back, calm but alert. She didn't need applause. She only needed accuracy. Because in her mind, it wasn't about proving herself. It was about protecting the mission. The room held its breath as the final countdown echoed through the speakers. 10, 9, 8. The tower buzzed with quiet tension, every officer glued to their screen. Leena sat still, watching the data flow like a river of numbers and patterns she knew by heart. At 0, the missile launched with a thunderous roar, streaking through the sky like a flash of lightning. A long silence followed as the tracking system locked onto the target. Then direct impact, right on the bullseye. The room erupted. Cheers, claps, slaps on the back. "Perfect shot," someone said. Another joked, "Bet the higher-ups will frame this one." The team leader pulled up the system log to credit the successful coordinates to the lead officer. But the room went quiet again when the data revealed something unexpected. The final correction, the input that made the perfect strike possible, was not logged under any senior officer. It was done minutes before launch by Leena. At first, no one believed it. The commander scrolled back through the logs, eyes narrowing. There it was. Her user ID, her timestamp, her correction. The same one that saved the mission. The mood shifted. The silence now is different, not dismissive, but stunned. Someone whispered, "She did it." Slowly, heads turned toward her. She didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't even smile. She just sat there, her hands still resting calmly on the keyboard. In a room full of experts, it was the girl they had ignored, the trainee they had almost pushed out, who had delivered the most flawless result. The commander nodded slowly. For the first time, his voice carried respect. "Well done, Officer Leena." And just like that, the invisible girl became impossible to ignore. From that day forward, Leena was no longer just a trainee or a quiet presence in the back of the room. She was promoted to lead data analyst, the first woman ever to hold that position in the facility's history. But she didn't let the new title change her. She still arrived early, still worked silently, and still treated everyone with calm respect, even those who had once doubted her. But something had shifted. Her presence now carried weight. Young recruits, especially the women, began to look at her with hope in their eyes. Officers who once dismissed her now asked for her input. Yet, when journalists came to cover the story of the young female genius, Leena declined. She didn't want cameras. She didn't want the spotlight. "I just did my job," she said. And that was that. Her courage didn't come from needing to be seen. It came from knowing she could deliver when it mattered most. Her story wasn't one of rebellion, but quiet resilience. She didn't shout to be heard. She listened, learned, and waited, and when the moment came, she acted. With unwavering precision. Years later, her name would quietly appear in training manuals, her technique used as a case study for emergency response under pressure. But in her heart, she stayed the same girl who used to sit beside her father, listening to the sky, Leena never asked to be a hero. She simply prepared for the moment the world didn't see coming. And when that moment arrived, she didn't just rise, she led. Not with noise, not with anger, but with calm, quiet bravery. The kind that history often forgets, but humanity never should. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share with someone who believes in silent strength. Asterisk, subscribe to Hidden Brave for more untold stories of real-life heroes who deserve to be remembered. Asterisk.